It's great to see so many familiar names and some familiar faces. Thank you for putting the time to be with us today. As Puya mentioned, we are focusing on how can you increase your impact by using strengths-based coaching. So that's our aim today. We're gonna do some demo with some of you. But before we dive into that, I'd like to get to know you a little bit, and maybe we get to know each other a little bit. So I'm going to put a poll question up so that you can respond kind of where you're at right now as far as your knowledge and your skills and your role. So just please go ahead and respond in your own time. There's 3 questions. One of them's got a few responses that you can use, and you can have multiple responses. The first one, and the second and third are it's either a yes or a no. So it's pretty quick. So where are you at today from the perspective of your coach training, your current role? Some of you may be managers or team leaders. Some of you may be within a team, working in an organization. So some of you may be hunting for developing your coaching skills, whether it's at work or going into coaching business. Where are you at? And then when you've answered that, please go to the second one, which says, have you completed the Clifton Strengths Finder assessment by Gallup? If you've done that, then I'll know kind of how much to go into depth of some of the stuff I'm going to talk about and how much I don't. So that would help from a perspective of not repeating things you already know. And the third question is, are you familiar with strength-based development? Have you been on any program or studied to understand what the difference is with strength-based development versus the development that we are traditionally used to having? So I'm going to give a little bit of time because some of you may be needing some time to read the responses. Once we get to about 80% of you guys responding, then at least we get a general view of where the group is currently. I will share the results so that we can see generally what the flavor of the participants are in terms of their experiences. So we just passed the 70% marker. I'm just going to allow a little bit more time for anybody who's responding final bits, and then we'll have a quick look at what the
I think
results
a couple of people have just entered. I wonder whether they see it.
It says to me, it says that there's 14 people who have access to these questions, and we got 14 people on the call, so they ought to see it. You should see it on your screen, and then you can respond appropriately. Okay, so we're pretty much there. So I'm gonna this particular poll and share the results. So you guys can see the results now. So the kind of 15 of us in this room, there's a large percentage who have completed their coach training program, over 60%. And there's around 20% managers, team leaders here, and 30%, about 30% who are team members. And roughly about 20% of you are currently undergoing coach training, and similar number looking for coaching development. So interestingly enough, majority of you haven't done the Clifton Strengths Finder assessment, and we'll talk about it a little bit more. And most of you are not familiar with the strength-based development. Okay, so we got a picture. Let's go and dive in to today. That's a beautiful picture. Hi. That looks amazing. Enjoy. It looks like he or she is enjoying it for sure. So, all right. So let me share you with a slide, and I want to kind of, in a nutshell, explain to you what I mean by strength-based development. So, when we look at the data across the world of individuals, whether you're team members or you're team leaders, and we ask the question, or the surveys have asked the question, how much are you utilizing your strengths, what you believe you're good at and want to do more at work every day? That's the kind of question that underlies this strength-based development. What we're finding is roughly around 75% of you respond that you do some kind of strength-based tasks and activities once a week. The idea of strength-based development is to shift that so it's 75% every day. And the impact of doing that is, underneath strength-based development is for you to develop your talents, understand what your core talents are, and utilize them intentionally in the tasks and activities you're dealing with. Because we know, based again on the results that we're seeing, is team members and team leaders are more productive, more fulfilled when they're applying their talents at work in the activities that they're assigned to or accept. And what we're seeing is when you're applying your talents, you're 6 times more likely to be engaged at work. And we have a very strong correlation, and Gallup's data also shows that, a very strong correlation of individuals that are engaged at work have higher performance. If teams working together are engaged as a team, that team performs higher. And when I say higher, I'm talking about when talents are utilized, you are performing almost all key performance indicators that an organization is important for them to see in you. Almost any KPI we look at, this applies. So what sits at the heart of this is, are you applying your talents every day in what you do? Whether you're a coach or a team leader, or you're within a team working for that organization. So some of you might say, what is it? What is talent? I'd like us to talk about this a little bit, because we're going to apply it in some of the demos we're going to talk about today. So as far as today and strength-based development is concerned, the definition of talent is the patterns that all of us have that repeat themselves in any circumstances. So it's not driven by outside world. It's automated. It's a pattern that is part of our DNA, and it's strong, and it comes up. And the way we see it is it's the way we think, it's the way we feel, and it's the way we behave. So by observing the thoughts, the feelings, and behaviors, you get access to what sort of talents are you able to have access to. In other words, where does your potential sit? What are your potentials? And what we know is, and this is a really important part of this strength-based development, in whatever it is that you do, if you think that you are the same or others are the same as you, you're going to fall into a pit, in the sense that you are carrying a belief that is counter to what potential you can access, whether it's within yourself or others. In other words, we're all different, and recognizing and owning the fact that we're different and finding our differences and applying them is our job, is our mission. So that's where today we're going to go into this 3-stage model. And I think this model can be applied by a coach, by team leaders, by people who are working in teams for themselves and help others progress. And here's the 3 steps. Here's the 3-step talent builder that we're going to demonstrate and talk about a bit more today. It's the acronym, it's the ICE acronym, just for you to kind of remember that it's a 3-stage process. It starts by identifying your innate talents. So it's the self-awareness part of it. Be aware of what those talents are. And I'm sure a lot of you already know what your talents are subconsciously. Some of you may deny the talents you have. You know, I hear from my clients or from my team members, sometimes they say, you know, that's not a big deal. What I just did is not a big deal. Anybody can do that. If you hear yourself say that or hear other people say that, it's a very, very big indicator that that person is utilizing a talent that they're underestimating, or they think everybody else has it as well. And it's not true. And by realizing that it's not true, then they can actually be more aware of how they can apply it more often, more intentionally. So identify your innate talents and then capture them. Capture them means own your talents, express your talents, acknowledge your talents, appreciate your talents. And that's something that relates to the example I just gave. If you don't know it, you're not aware of it, it's in the blind spot. So part of the coach's job for you, your coach could kind of put a floodlight on there and say, look, can you see you've got this talent and you're not kind of seeing it, but you're using it, you've got it. So part of it is being in your blind spot. The other part is that you know you've got it, but you think everybody else has got it, or you think it's not a big deal. So what I'm asking you to do is not only see it, recognize it, start owning it from a perspective that it forms part of your potential that makes you unique from a characteristics that you're showing in your day-to-day work life, whether it's coaching or in the organization. Now, the other beautiful thing about talents is that we don't have just the one talent. We have a combination of talents that are bold. Now, it's the combination, it's the way they work together that makes us unique. So if we understand what kind of talents we have and how they work together, we start to understand the power behind the combination effect. And that's where it starts to get a little bit complicated, because your self-awareness needs to rise and your knowledge needs to increase about what does that mean, so that you can get to know it more and then own it more. And the third step is where you go and intentionally utilize it where it's required. I'm going to repeat that because this is the bit where most of us fall. Intentionally apply the talents that are warranted in the circumstances we are facing. So if the circumstance warrants empathy, and you've got empathy in your talents in high and dominant, draw on it, because you're intentionally utilizing a talent to get an outcome. The outcome is that by empathizing with the other person, you're connecting, you're building trust, you're building a safe space, and therefore your working relationship could improve. So part of this impact of strengths-based coaching is assisting, first of all, ourselves in being more aware of intentionally applying those talents that are warranted in the circumstances that appear in front of us. If you go into a meeting and that meeting is all over the place and it's not going anywhere, and you know it's not going anywhere, your talents are coming up by saying, I can bring order to this, right? You can utilize that talent to bring an outcome that's going to be good for you and the team or the people that are around there. So it's being very consciously and intentional in executing what you have as the power that sits there. So I'm going to focus on the first step. So we're going to go on this journey together. And actually, before we go any further, let me ask, who is in a situation where they can open up their line, their internet is pretty good, and they are okay to interact with me, have a conversation? So because we're going to have a demo, so I'd like to be able to interact with some of you in order to demonstrate how this thing works. So it's not theory, it's how do we put this understanding into application. So who's willing to walk with me?
Okay, I really wanted to be an observer today, but if no one else raises their hands, then I'll do it. Okay,
so we've got Julia. Who else? Don't make me volunteer you, please. Come and raise your hand.
I have a tough time because my hands are full.
I can tell. Yes, and you wanna let the little one sleep.
Yeah, but if I can, I have no problem.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else ready to dive in? Remember, if you volunteer, you are getting a direct benefit, because we are going to talk about something you're going to bring for you, and other people are going to get the indirect benefit of it.
I am willing to. However, my internet connection is not stable enough to resume, especially when I'm opening the camera. So okay. I'll be at the end of the line if there is a possibility to. Thank you.
Okay. Hanfi, lovely to see you again, and thank you for volunteering.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, so let's dive in. Let's go, and let's just talk about what we're about to go into as a conversation, and so you can learn how this process works, so you can apply it in whatever role you are. If the idea is that you want to develop yourself or others, if that's your intention, this model works, and it's pretty powerful, and it's simple, and yet it requires skill and knowledge from your part. So hopefully I'm going to add to that skill and knowledge as we go forward. So let's start with the first part, which is the first step. How do you identify talents? How do we identify talents? So I'm going to share with you a file, and I'm going to invite you, and it's probably going to take about 5 minutes of today's session for us in silence to be able to capture individually. So it's really, this is all about you and what you know about yourself to date. And you're going to capture, out of the 34 examples I'm going to put up there, you're going to pick anything between 3 and 5 minimum. Anything between 3 and 5 out of those 34 that you know you observe in yourself in the past and today. So these are talents that you've observed in your past or today. You know, when you read it, when you hear it, you know it's you. You know that's defining you. Okay, so this is a very general kind of identification of talent, but it's a really good start point where we are. So I'm going to dive straight in, and I'm going to ask you to be ready with your pen and paper. And those of you who can't use a pen and paper for whatever reason, see if you can remember at least 3, right? And remember what I'm sharing here. We're going to define it. We're going to define it. You're going to observe it, and you're going to put a language to it. So the list I'm bringing up, for each talent group, there is a name. That's the language, right? So for example, you may see achiever, and the definition of achiever is that you have high stamina and hard working. If that's you, then the language you can jot down, right? You can put down achiever, because it's starting to give it language to the talent or the group of talents that you know, that you have observed in yourself in the past and today. It's you. It's not something you want. It's something you are. Okay, we're diving into being, the being of you, as opposed to what it is you want. This is who you are, and you've observed it in the way you think, in the way you feel, and in the way you've behaved in the past. So those are the clues that you are on the right track. So here's the list I'm gonna bring up, and I'm gonna read that list kind of fairly quickly, because I think once you hear the words, you can pretty quickly decide, is this you or not? So here we go. So achiever, works hard, is busy and productive. Activator, makes things happen, often impatient. Adaptability, takes things as they come. Analytical, searches for reasons and causes. Arranger, you're flexible, and maximizing productivity is important. Belief, you have certain core values you will not move from, and they are unchanging. Command, you take control of the situation and make decisions. Communication, you are a good conversationalist and presenter. Competition, you revel in contest. Connectedness, every event has a meaning. That's the way you think. Consistency, you treat people the same. Context, you enjoy thinking about the past. Deliberative, you're serious. You take serious care before you make decisions or choices. And you anticipate obstacles.
Just to clarify while you're going, I am picking up what is relevant to me, right?
Absolutely.
And I'm writing them down, right? Just
Absolutely. So what you're doing is, as you're hearing me and you're reading, you want to pick at least 3 or 5 that's completely you, based on what you know about yourself. And you jot it down, and you can either write the sentence, or easier, just call it the language that it's here. So it might be easier to do that.
Is this list the only list, or there are more?
There's 34 themes. So this is a 34th theme that we're going to be using.
So I'll be picking from this sheet and another sheet as well, right?
There's 34. It's ongoing. I will stop once we get to the 34. So the next one is developer. Developer, recognize and cultivate the potential in others. It's just innate in you. That's what you do. Discipline, you enjoy routine and structure. It feels good when you have routine and structure. Empathy, you can sense other people's feelings. You put yourself in other people's shoes innately and sense how they feel. Focus, you prioritize and then act. Futuristic, you are inspired by the future. Harmony, you look for consensus. You are observing and looking, where is the consensus? You do that naturally. Ideation, You find connections between seemingly disparate phenomena. You have this ability to spot it. Includer. You accept others. You invite others in. Individualization. You have this gift for figuring out how different people can work together productively. You can just feel it, you know it, and you do it. Input. You collect and archive all kinds of information. Intellection. You appreciate intellectual discussions. Learner. You have this great desire to learn and want to improve continuously. Maximizer. You focus on strengths. You want to take something strong to something superb. Positivity. You have this contagious enthusiasm. Relator. You enjoy close relationship with others. Responsibility. You are psychologically owning what you say you will do. Restorative. You're good at figuring out what's wrong and resolving it. Self-assurance. You possess an inner compass. Kind of gives you that confidence that your decisions are the right ones. Significance. You are independent and want to be recognized. Strategic. You quickly spot the relative patterns and issues. Last one, but not least, woo, is you derive satisfaction from breaking the ice and making a connection with someone. Strangers. Now, these are not in order. They were in alphabetical order. So there's no weighting on these. So as you heard this, what did you jot down for yourself as the top 3, top 5 that was, you have that characteristic, and it's been there in the past and it's there now. No matter what you do, whether it's at home, at work, it's part of you. It's part of your being. This characteristic is your talents. Hamfi.
Yeah, actually, I jotted down like 7 or 8. I can't count now, but I can see major ones. Number 1 for me is communication. I like to communicate with anyone in the world, whatever the cause there is. I just would like to communicate, and I feel myself really live and vigorous when I communicate with people, and you can sense it. And number 2, I'm a learner. I always seek to learn whatever new, whatever comes in my way. I like to learn about and read about and explore. And of course, intellectual. I intellectualize everything. And of course, there are others that can come in the way: adaptability, arranger, significance, strategic, and woo. But the 3 major is communication, learner, and intellectual. Yes.
Lovely. Thank you. So while we're on the track here with the 2 volunteers, Julia, what are yours?
I have also, I think, 7. I'm trying to figure out what I think are the main 3. I think empathy for sure, positivity, maybe responsibility.
Yeah. and the other 3 or 4 that you jotted down, what were they?
Adaptability, includer, relator, and woo.
I heard adaptability, includer, relator.
Yes, and woo.
Yeah, got it. Oh, okay, great. So I'm kind of guessing that all of you that are attending have put at least 3 down for yourselves, because you're going to be using this in this process. Oh, well done. My goodness. Multitasking. Awesome. Well done. Great. So well done, Anjit. So I think we're ready to move to the next stage. What have we just done? Let's just recap what we just done. You have put a language by me giving you some characteristics that research shows. Each one of those contain a group of talents within them, right? Hanfi said communication as number 1. It was very strong. He feels alive and vigorous, right? And he loves to communicate with others, right? That's what he's noticed in himself, and that's the category of talents within that. Now, what could be within that as a talent? Now, I'll go into that conversation with Hanfi, but some of the things I've heard from others, for example, some people say, I love making a presentation in front of large audiences. Some people say, I love to talk to understand what's going on in my head. So there are different talents that people observe that fall within communication, right? That's kind of defining your how it works for you, right? How is that talent working for you? Now, the way to kind of own it is to go back, right? The best way to own something is for it to be very visible in front of you, that not only do you have it, but it's come to your rescue multiple times. Rescue meaning what? That if you have a task to do, if you need to get something done, that talent has come up, you've utilized it in getting that task done, and it's the way you've done that task which is unique to you, and you're utilizing those characteristics to get that done, right? So Hanfi, for example, may go back, and we'll have a conversation in a minute, but I want to give you some examples so that you understand what you're going to look for yourself. So ask yourself this question, and I'd like you to just jot down for you some answers that come up. Take the number 1 theme or talent that you wrote down, the language that you wrote down. So Julia mentioned empathy. It may not be the strongest, but just take that one as a starter. Hanfi mentioned communication. Whichever you wrote in your list as the number 1, or you've circled as high priority, whichever it is, pick that one, right? And then go back as long as you want, right? As long as you can remember, into your childhood even, right? And just think about in the past, when did that characteristic came up and you got results, you got the result you wanted. So I'd like you to kind of answer that question, right? And come up with at least 2 to 3 scenarios. When did it come up and it was helpful to you? It was productive. It kind of helped you get the results you wanted. Now, at this point, if you have a question or you're stuck, please let me know. Let's have a conversation, because I want you to move forward with everybody else. So if you're pondering and you're thinking, oh, I don't know what to say or what to do,
I missed 2 or 3 statements. You need me to pick up 3 scenarios that applies my strength of communication. Is that true?
Yeah, let me give an example, Hanfi. Let me give you an example. So for communication, I want you to go back as long as you can remember and think about where did you have the urge to use the communication in order to get something done, and it worked.
Okay.
Right? As a 7-year-old in the family, you may have been one that stands up and talks in front of everyone and says something, right? That may have just come out because that's who you are, right? And you did it because you wanted to get an outcome. You know, maybe you wanted to get a prize in a party or something, right? It doesn't have to be work related, because this is who we are wherever we are. Does that help, Hanfi? Okay. So I'm going to give you a little bit of time. Think about this. If you want, like Hanfi, you have a question, please raise your hand or just open your mic and let's have a conversation. And perhaps once you've got it, just raise your hand. Just let me know how we're doing, so we can move to the next step. Cool. Thanks, Julia. Does anybody need more time? Does anybody need more time before we go forward? No? So Julia, let's hear from you. What can you think about one circumstance where empathy innately came up and it helped you deliver something?
Yeah, so I chose another one actually. I didn't want to look into this one. I chose positivity instead.
Okay.
So yes, quite recently I was offered to deliver some workshops, and I said yes, having no idea how I was going to wing it, basically, because it was on a specific topic. And yeah, just I thought if I say yes, if I commit, then I'll find ways to make it work. And then I went through a rough time where I thought, I don't know why I said yes, it's not going to work. But then eventually the positivity kind of came back to me, and I found solutions, and I delivered it last week, and it went really well. So yeah.
That's awesome. So you know what I'm hearing, Julia? It's really interesting just listening to you identify those themes or the talents that you listed. So adaptability has this tendency to be in the moment, and it kind of goes with the flow. And I'm guessing when you delivered in the flow.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the word that you accepted it, and then you weren't sure how it's going to be delivered. Right? Now, I'm kind of guessing that there's a combination of adaptability and self-assurance happening for you. This inner radar that says you can do it, I'm confident, this is good, and the adaptability is saying, let's go and see what happens. And when you deliver, you do it that way too, right? So you may go up and down in the process of getting there, but once you get there, your confidence and your adaptability is working for you to deliver it. Now, I'm saying this just purely on the words I heard from you, but so I don't know if that's true or not. How does that sound?
So it's very interesting. Adaptability definitely is one that's on my list as well. Self-assurance is a very interesting one. It's not one that I recognize in me, but it's one that people around me, my friends, people I work with, keep telling me that I have it, but I don't see it myself. So okay. Really interested that you said that.
Okay, amazing. So part of this is about blind spots. So what I've discovered during this journey is that I have not realized what I have. And it's only by using certain structures or tools, and I became aware of it. And then I started owning it by becoming, by in a sense, what Julia is going through right now. She kind of still doesn't believe it. Now, if she gets more and more relevant examples that it's working for her, and maybe if she does an assessment, I don't know whether you've done the Clifton assessment. If you do an assessment and it comes up there as well, it's kind of support. If you get more and more support, people give feedback, your coach tells you, you get your tools, and then you start believing it, right? And as you start believing, your filter starts to bring it up more. You're almost allowing it to be observant in you. It's been there, it's doing it because other people are seeing it, right? It's just you're not seeing it, or at least you haven't put a language to it yet. So it could be sometimes we think that we know our talents. And we don't, because we haven't seen it yet in a way where we can quantify it, put a language to it, and then believe it, which is the second stage of owning it. So just now, the conversation between me and Julia, she focused on positivity and how positivity in this example supported her to carry on, to think it is, there is a way of doing it. I see the cup half full of me accepting this. It's that mindset and the enthusiasm behind it, right? So there's fear and something that behind the scene is playing with her mind, perhaps, but the talent is pushing her forward. So if she allows the talent to come up more and develop that, the fear and stuff starts to become less and less important. The talent power starts to play its part. And that requires development. That requires Julia, first of all, being aware of it. Second of all, intentionally utilizing what she's owned. Now, she owned positivity. She mentioned in the top 3, right? So, Julia, thank you for that example. Let's go to Hanfi. Hanfi, which theme did you choose?
Well, I chose communication, but I started to think backward. When did I start to be a good communicator? And it started when I was just a child in the prep school. Was delivering speeches in front of students each and every day in public. I mean, you know, I don't know how to say it. It's the school always each morning some students deliver the news and small speeches too. So this was my start, going back to my childhood. And
nice.
It continued with me when I was in the university. I joined the theatrical group where we used to deliver plays, and it continued when I became an English instructor. So now I am a trainer. I can speak to a number of audience that goes to 600 people at a time. So one of the last examples, I've been in a very huge mass number of audience when the CEO was there, and there came a question that I had to respond to, and I responded with a systematic approach, communicating the main theme and the idea to the audience and to the CEO as well, in a way that each and everyone clapped. This is just one example. But there is another example when there is a problem in the public transportation. It was a bus, and we were traveling a lengthy, long route, and the bus had no air conditioner. And we had to stop at the police station to report the problem. Nobody wanted to volunteer, but I came up and I talked to the police officer in a way that convinced him that we have the right and the driver is not right, and we could have another bus to move forward. So these are 2 examples of communication, but still I am not sure whether this strength is made up because I started in my childhood to speak in front of audience, or it's a talent inside. This is the question that came up to my mind now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Hanfi. I don't know whether the rest of you felt when Hanfi was talking, there was a tremendous amount of ownership of this communication theme or talent. Right, he owns it. He knows it from childhood all the way through. Many examples where it's come up naturally. He doesn't have to have effort. It's there in support of him. The question is, how are you using it? right? So your talents are there to be utilized. The question is, how are you utilizing it? So that's the third piece. How do you intentionally execute that talent where it's required? And the other thing I heard from Hanfi, when perhaps some of you have heard it as well, Hanfi was talking about circumstances where in the moment there was a requirement to respond. Whether it's the CEO, whether it's where he had to take action with the police, there was in the moment where there was a requirement for response. And he delivered that response. Now, the way he delivered it, he refers to it as the communication part. What I heard that was next to that, or together with that talent, with the police officer specifically, was the strategic talent. Thinking about how strategically to put this case forward so that the best outcome comes. Which way do I go to get to this best outcome? And those the wiring in his brain was supporting him innately, and he utilized it because he needed it at that time, and he had developed it. He had developed that muscle to be able to utilize it on the go when he needed it. Because he developed it, when the circumstances came up, he intentionally utilized it to get the results he wants. Not all of us have developed the talent to draw on it when it's required. So part of the story here is, how can we develop our talents so that in various circumstances, it's almost like you're sitting behind a horse that is pretty wild, but you've learned how to make that horse tame, to work for you, to get an outcome it's important for you. That's when you know you are dealing with your talents and you're developing your talents. So Hanfi, the very fact that you are referring to these examples that were with you from childhood and they are there as part of you, the science behind this says that this is how your neurological system in your brain is wired. So talents is just the wiring in our heads. And the way it's wired makes us unique. So Hanfi is pretty unique in the way his combination of talents work for him. So the talents are there because that's the way he's wired. How he utilizes it is this development program we're talking about right now. First of all, for Hanfi to realize he's got it, identification. Number two, owning it, really owning it, like the communication. I've got this, I know I've got this, and I know I can utilize it. I know what it looks like when I utilize it. So owning it. And then the third one is, where do I apply it where it can gain the results that I want and others want? So basically getting positive outcome. Where can I use it? And then intentionally going and doing it. So that requires thinking, right? So I'm not asking you to do this on every single thing you're supposed to be making decisions on. We'll go mad. However, what I am asking you to do is to become more aware and own your talents. And when you get to a situation where you notice things are not working, this is one of the most important times. When you notice something is not working, you come back to this 3-step process. Because it's probably because you're either misapplying a talent you have a talent, but you're not applying it effectively, so you need to develop it, or you're short of a talent, but other talents that you have can come and complement and fill the gap, and you're not conscious of it, and you need to consciously do that, draw on something that you need right now. Or there may be some knowledge and skill you need to learn. So Hanfi may go and get up and do what he knows best. He starts to communicate, and then all of a sudden he realizes, oh, this is not going very well. I'm not getting the response from the audience. He needs to go back and ask himself, what is it that this audience needs of my talents that I can draw out? And is there a knowledge or skill set that I need to develop to be able to apply in these circumstances that I can get a positive outcome? So for example, he may be addressing a particular issue that his knowledge is not up to scratch. He's a great communicator, but his knowledge is not up to scratch, and he needs to build that. So if you're getting into trouble, there is a reason. And I'm asking you to be alert to that. If it's not working, don't blame it on somebody else, because that's what we generally do. It's our initial reaction. Own it. Take responsibility. Come back and ask yourself, which of these elements could it be? Is it the talent? Is it the skill, lack of skill, or misapplication of skill? Is it the lack of knowledge or misapplication of knowledge? Is it the lack of talent that I need to alter and put some talents that I do have in its place? Or am I misapplying the talent that I have? Which one do you think it is? And if you can't find the answer, go and work with a coach to find the answer, because that's the development part. If you then realize and develop it, then you're grown. When that circumstance comes, or similar circumstances come, you know what to do. And that happens to us as we grow, right? As we go and change a job, we go into a new environment. You're given a new position at work. You're going to be thrown into environments where you're going to hit problems, right? You know it's a problem, either for yourself or others, right? People are giving you feedback. Why is this person behaving in such and such a manner? If you're hearing feedback like that, go back to this model. It's something to do with how you are applying talent, skill, knowledge. Right? It's as simple as that. And yet the complexity is getting to know ourselves, because, and the fact that we are in this constant changing world and circumstances. So don't worry about it if there's not a problem. Just carry on, because if there's no problem, you're okay. It's when there's a problem, you need to go and manage that problem. Otherwise, you are putting a block to your development. You need to grow. The problems come to tell you you need to grow. And we all have those, right? All of us have those, because that's part of life, right? Growing. So we've just addressed 3 steps. Identify it, own it, and then go and intentionally apply it where it's needed. Okay, so in the time we have, I'm going to do a very quick demonstration with Julia, right? Because she volunteered. So Julia, and I want the rest of you to do this for you, so that you're also benefiting through this process. I'd like all of you to think about in whatever role you're at right now that's important to you, whether you're a team leader, manager, coach, parent, yeah, a role that's important to you. Think about that role that you're playing, and think about a goal that you have in relation to that role that it's important for you to accomplish, to get a good outcome of. So if you're a team member, you may be having a conflict with one of your team members or your boss, right? And for you to have higher engagement and feel better at work and grow at work, you decide that I want to go and manage this. If you're a team leader, you've just got a team, you're thinking, oh my God, how am I gonna address this new environment, right? So what is it for you? Just think about one goal. So Julia, specific for you, as you're writing down the goal, see if you can make it into a sentence that says, that's a question that you need to answer, right? So the goal is a question. What's the question you'd like to answer? Whenever you're ready.
Okay, so I'm a coach and a facilitator full time. So this is my own business, and so I already have a relationship with 2 external clients as entities, right? Consultancies. And so the question right now would be, how can I develop more relationships with consultancies?
Great. Great. So the question is, how can I develop more of the same type of relationship as I have with these two, with other similar clients?
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. Great goal, by the way. Okay, so all right, so that's the goal. What's your goal? Whatever you've written, just you need to focus on that goal, and then the steps we're going to follow, and I'm going to go through with Julia, and the questions I'm asking, I'm going to follow the same model, so you can follow the same model, and perhaps you can start asking yourself some additional questions with relation to those 3 steps we're going forward. Okay, so the idea is for all of us to see how you can apply this 3-step model to get a goal and a series of actions that you can go forth towards achieving that goal. Okay, so that's the idea, is ultimately you're going to come up with a set of actions, and those set of actions, I'm going to give you like a wild card right now for all of you. The actions you're going to come up with, it's very likely is something to do with your being. It's something to do with your talents, your characteristics. It's how are you going to draw more of who you are to go and get that job done, right? It's very likely the outcome is going to be that. So I'm giving you a heads up on this, right? Because why am I saying this? As a coach, we know that when a client taps into their being and what they have as potential, they are very capable of adding skill sets and knowledge in order to develop and make things happen. They've done it a million times in other things. If they become more aware of their potential that's relevant with what they want to achieve, the engine that goes behind delivering that becomes like a Ferrari, because you're tapping into who you are, and it becomes easier. It feels better when you're doing it, and you learn faster to get it done. So if you need extra skills, if you need extra knowledge, that talent behind it makes you learn faster, right? So that's the strength-based development part that makes this model work so well. So Julia, let's now that we've kind of nailed this, let's go into this goal, and I'm going to ask you to do something right off the bat. So I'm going to make this a little bit mechanical because I want everybody else to come with us, right? So this is not a normal strength coaching session that I would do, but it's a little bit more mechanical. So what I'd like you to do is have a look at your, those 3 to 7 talents that you wrote down that you could observe in yourself, right? Now, I want you to be in a particular way when you're doing this. I want you to consciously put yourself in the context of your 2 clients, right? The 2 clients you have, what you know about them, who they are, how you found them, how it is with them, right? Everything you know about them, just focus on that, right? As a context. Now look at your list of 3 to 7 and see which 2, 3 of those would you pick that was visible in who you were in creating what you've already got. So while Julia's doing that, I'd like the rest of you, whatever goal you've set yourself, think about the talents you wrote down that you picked. Think about those characteristics within the talents you picked. And then look at your goal. Look at that goal and put yourself into a context where, by observing who you are and who you have been all these years, what are the achievements in relation to this particular goal you've written? What are those talents that relate to the potential that you have used before to get similar goals done? So if you want to go and work with your team as a new team, right? And your challenge was, how do I approach this new team so that we can quickly get to know each other really well? I would say go back, have a look at the previous teams, or if you haven't done a team, look at a team leader who you know did it and you observed. Who were they being? What were they utilizing? And look at the talents that you picked that you can spot, that you have. And then have a look at what is it, those 3 or 4 talents that you could tap into, because they're going to give you the best chance to get that goal done. So let's get to Julia. Julia, what have you come up with?
So I picked one that I didn't say in the 7, but it was still on my list. And it's the first one that came to my mind was, it was connectedness. So with those 2 clients, it was really a case of the stars aligning, and suddenly I was in the right place at the right time and got the contract. So for me, yeah, that's why I chose that one. Then there's Woo, that I'm struggling to pronounce. Because I think I have a really, it goes with the empathy as well, but I have a way of sensing how to interact with very different people, and I definitely will not interact with everyone the same way, and I sense that very intuitively. And it doesn't mean I'm dishonest, I'm always myself, but I kind of adapt to the person I'm talking to every time. And then the last one is responsibility, which is very strong for me. And exactly one of the things that, as you mentioned in the beginning, I used to think it was normal. I used to think it's everyone has this, everyone feels responsible for their work and is loyal to their employer and, really cares about the quality of their work. And then it took me a while to realize that not necessarily, and this is very, very strong in me. And I know something that they both really appreciate in working with me.
What they appreciate is your psychological commitment to get things done.
Yes, my work ethics, I would say.
Yeah, awesome. Did you hear yourself when you were describing Woo? You kind of used some words that was interesting. You said I can relate to people, and there's an that could be partly linked to empathy. Mm-hmm. And then you said I adapt. Mm-hmm. Right? Adaptability, in the moment. So there's 3 themes, 3 talents working together as a combination that's making you pretty damn unique, right? In the way you're approaching people. And just right off the bat, your senses go up in terms of who you're dealing with. You quickly put them into the different needs that they have. I'm guessing this. And you're adaptable because you can shift to be having a communication with them that's more to do with them rather than you.
Yes.
And you break the ice very quickly, because that's the Woo. That's you're willing to go into that conversation. You're willing and you like going into that conversation. So you've got these 3 talents just combined and made you very different to anybody else, right? And so that to me is a powerhouse sitting right there. And what I'm guessing is for the 2 clients that you've have right now, you utilized these top 3 that you highlighted, probably with empathy and adaptability with it.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. That's really great. So what have we just done? So Julia has identified at least 5. The connectedness, Woo, responsibility, adaptability, empathy. 5 talents types that she knows from history and the ownership that she has of the talents. She knows that it's likely to help her go and get some more of the type of clients she's already got. That's what she's just done. By identifying the themes, owning the themes, and in the owning part, she started to describe what that talent is doing for her. She said, I think. So the talent is either thinking, feeling, or behaving. I think, or I believe that stars align and connections happen for good reason. and that we are connected, and this is how we were supposed to be connected. That mindset of hers gets her to go into the communication. I have a belief that this is the reason. And then she goes and breaks the ice through Wu by tapping into the empathy and the adaptability. And she breaks the ice and gets the connection based on their terms. And the responsibility is how she's showing up, where she's building trust about who she is and how she's going to deliver for them. That's what I heard. I don't know whether, Julia, is that the summary?
Yeah, no, I find it so interesting to see how they work together, right? We didn't talk again about positivity, but it was a strong one as well. So I can see now that it comes as a result of the connectedness, and this is what allows me to then feel confident enough to go and woo them when I want to. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm also, I'm hearing you're using the words, right? And the words is a language. Those words have meaning. Now, I have the confidence. The confidence has come from something. Now, if you draw deep, that confidence may be the radar that is there, has been there. The confidence may be based on the fact that you have utilized some of the talents to have observed something, and therefore confidence come as a result of it, right? That's something that perhaps you can discover and go and explore a little bit more. So where we're at is you've got a goal, you know the themes, you know those talent that could serve it, you know the elements within it, right? Of the how, there's some of the elements of the how that you're going to do it, right? Now, my next question is this intentional execution, right? So you want to have, as a result, going forward, when we leave today, at some stage going forward, you want to have one, and then another client, two, and then another three. You want to add to the list you have, right? So what are you going to intentionally go and do? I'm going to give you a clue when you're thinking about this, and I'm going to come back to the rest of you. When I ask this question, I want you to go back to those three things that you can focus on. You can intentionally focus on the action of the talents you're going to draw on. You can intentionally think about the skills you want to go and develop. You can intentionally think about the knowledge you want to go and gain, or all three. So any one of those three could be actions, or all of those three could be actions where you're intentionally going to go and develop those talents. Those talents are going to happen because Julia has kind of drawn them out the box and says, this is what I'm going to fire intentionally towards my goal, right? So, Julia, so I'd like all of you to think about that now that you're going through this process for yourself. If you've identified your themes, your talents, you know what is it about that talent that in that goal is going to support you. Now think about what are you intentionally going to go and do, and what you're going to go and do is going to have some or all of those elements we just talked about: talent, skill, knowledge, to make it really strong. So, Julia, what do you decided intentionally you're going to go and do?
So I think I do, like often look at potential clients, but then the thing that we have not really talked about today is what's on the other side of the talents, right? And it's more like what hinders us. And so then when I get, or the fear, right? You did talk about the fear. So then when I get in those moments, I just kind of get nervous and I get worried about being rejected. And then I kind of think, oh, maybe I'm not ready enough, and I need to wait a little bit longer before, add something more to my CV before I really contact those clients. And so I think this is where I have to change something, right? It's in the mindset that I intentionally put myself in when I'm in the action of looking for potential clients, so that if my mindset is different, it allows me to reach out and not delay this.
Absolutely. So you just put your finger on the gem here. So you recognize a pattern that comes up for you, right? That pattern comes up for all of us at some stage. So it's come up for you. And one of the things you have intentional power to tap into is the talent. Which talents do you think if you intentionally brought to mind more often, especially when these negative thoughts come, which talents could you focus on that is going to build the kind of mindset that you need?
So I see two, like, in correlation. So positivity for sure, right?
Yeah.
This is the most important, but also connectedness, because in the event of something not working out and of actually getting rejected for a job, which, for example, that happened to me recently, then I can draw on that source to think, okay, it didn't happen because it was not meant for me, it wasn't right. And so I can let go of that without having, to deal with the pain of it.
Perfect solution, a perfect action. So two talents that she knows she has. She's going to draw on those in order to support Julia to make things happen on a more consistent basis. So every time she says, oh, here it is, I'm stuck because I'm thinking in a way where I'm coming up with excuses, or I'm kind of delaying it, right? As soon as she recognizes that, she decides to pull on two themes or two talents. Number one, she didn't say this, but this is what I'm hearing. Number one, I believe, right? That's the connectedness. She taps into a belief, and it sounds like that belief is pretty strong. So it kind of helps her move. And the second one is, what is the enthusiasm of doing it versus not doing it, right? So you're almost tipping the balance toward doing by tapping into talent that she has, which is positivity, and the enthusiasm of going and doing this, even though it might fall down, even though she may not know everything she needs to know about it. The enthusiasm is also a Ferrari engine that goes forward. So belief and enthusiasm are her Ferrari engine to go forward. And that's when her thought goes to a process where it's slowing her down. So she increases her speed, and she will feel good because she's tapping into talent she's got. She will feel she's utilizing who she is. She's not pretending. She is that, and many other things. Right now, in all of this, Julia, I'm going to give you something I observed in addition, which is to do with skill, I think, because I think you've got the knowledge as a coach, and it's to do with celebration, right? As a skill set of ICF competency. So, some of us go and learn skills to be able to do a few things. Number one, to be who we are more often. Number one. Number two, to be able to very quickly build rapport and trust, because without it, we're not going to get the clients, or we're not going to get the thing moving. The third one is, how do we communicate more effectively? And then finally, how do we facilitate our growth? That's what ICF competencies are all about. So the bit I'm noticing with Julia, that as a skill set, what she could do is she could go with the mindset of celebration, that even when I fail, it's a win because I'm learning. That's a mindset of celebration, because learning is I'm developing. Failing is part of growth, and it's good, right? If you manage that, right? So I'm not asking Julia to go and jump down a hole. I'm asking her to go and do steps, even if it's a small step, with a mindset that if I fail, I'm going to learn something which makes this faster. So I'm going to get there faster, and I'm going to feel good because I'm moving forward. Right? Julia, are you going to take that on?
Yeah, you're really spot on with the celebration. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so congratulations and thank you for volunteering. Are you okay to complete there? That's the three steps we just completed. So guys, before I hand over to Puya, does anybody want to kind of share a takeaway of your process, of what you've learned, or insights, something you want to share? Maybe even the exercises.
Yeah, actually, I had the question that I asked previously. If there is any whatsoever insightful answers, that would be great for me. These strengths, as I mentioned, I noticed the communication strength in me was developed from childhood and on. Is this a real innate talent, or it was a developed skill through time? This is the question. Do we develop strengths through time with exposure to life experiences, or we are born with them innately? This is the question that I would like to understand, if there is insight for this. Thank you.
Yeah. So Hamfi, everybody, please take this away with you today, because I think there's a myth, or there's something that's out there that we've learned, and we need to unlearn it and look at it in a different way. If you have an urge to do something, your talents are playing. Your talents are at play, right? So I have an urge to stand up and talk. That's an urge. That means my communication talent is at play. Does that mean I'm going to stand up and talk and be effective? No, it doesn't. But if I have an urge to do it, and I go and develop the talent by going and learning some skills that complement the communication talent, like how do I give a presentation that's more effective? How do I communicate in a way where I can draw in the audience? These are things you skillfully can go and learn. But the talent is either there or not. If there's no urge to get up and do it, the communication talent is not there. If you have that urge, I am begging you to go and develop it, because it's wanting to be developed. And the more you develop it by adding skills, by adding knowledge and repeating experience and getting feedback, you're going to be pretty damn hot at communicating, or whatever it is talent that you have. I hope I managed to answer it this time.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's really a good answer to me. If I feel the urge to, that means I have more talents than communication. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Really
you're welcome. So listen to how you feel is my kind of intentionally, I'm asking you to go and kind of focus on this. Listen to how you feel. If you have a feeling that says, I'm really drawn to this, I don't know why, but I want to do this, there's a reason, right? There's those talents that are at play. So great stuff. So anybody who wants to share, I know some of you are starting to share in the chat. Puya, I'm gonna pass over to you pretty quickly. I'm just gonna look at the chat and see what people have said, if there's any response required. Thank you. Can I ask you to tell me how to pronounce your name? I don't want to guess incorrectly.
Nahum.
Nahum. Thank you very much, Nahum. That's awesome. Thank you very much for sharing your insight. Okay, so thank you. So I'm not seeing any raised hands or questions out there in the chat. I'm going to give it a little bit of time, because at the moment, out of the 15 people, there's about 20% of you who've responded. Once we get up to, again, around the 70-80%, I will switch to the next set, which is a little bit about feedback to us, and then we're done. So maybe bear with us for a couple of minutes more. We're almost there on this one. So I know that some people are still completing, so I'm going to give it a few more seconds. Okay, so I'm going to ask you, have a look at this feedback. Yeah, it's 3 questions. So how did you first hear about ICE? What was the first place you saw us or heard about us? Second one is, was the workshop effective for you? And then the third one, last question, would you recommend the workshop to others? And again, I'm going to just give it a little bit of time until we're about 70% minimum response, and then we'll switch back to Puya. And by the way, I want to, while some of you are responding, I want to thank every one of you who have stayed through and is giving this feedback. It's lovely to see those of you that I know and I've seen before, and some new names. Look forward to catching up with you guys again soon. Thanks, everyone. The next strength workshop is on the 22nd of September. I'm repeating what Puya said. I would love to see you out there. Use the discount. Come and join us so we can carry on with this process. Thanks.
Thank you,
Stay
Evan.
healthy. Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.